you at some point decided, fuck it, I'm quitting?
I had to leave my job.
So much more worth it.
I was upset at myself for missing that.
What the hell did I get myself into?
I want them to be, I want them to succeed.
All right, bro. Well, thanks for jumping on. How you doing today, bro?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Fantastic, dude. So, if you don't mind, introduce yourself to the people watching. Kind of tell us what you do, the name of your company, and how long you've been in business.
Okay. My name is Jesse Martir. I am with True Sports Performance. That's my company. I do physical therapy. I am a licensed physical therapist assistant with a minor in strength and conditioning.
Perfect. Yeah. So, Jesse, what we're going to do today, bro, is we're going to walk through your journey in entrepreneurship. So, you'll tell us about your background, your upbringing, how you got into business. And I think the idea is just to get everybody watching a true feel for the things you went through and hopefully, inspire or motivate some other guys that are aspiring entrepreneurs or are starting their journey like you did to, to take the next step and to not quit. So, that being said, bro, talk to me. How long have you been in your field? Let's talk about first the work stuff. How long have you been in your field?
Okay, so in my field, I've been in for about 5-6 years around there.
Okay.
On my own, I just started pretty much last March. So we're looking at a year and some change, like maybe like 8-9 months around there.
And so 5 years, so what, 2019 more or less? Is that about right?
Yeah, so I graduated 2018, I believe. Yeah, about 2019 or so.
You're how old now, Jesse?
I'm 35.
You're getting old,
years young.
Yeah. So let's talk about, because I've known you since we were kids, and I know, but most people watching don't know. So what did you do before you went into school to become a PTA, and what made you want to choose that career path?
Okay, so this is interesting. So I pretty much, before going into PTA school, I never really took school too serious. I was doing it just because, it was the norm. It was like, you got to go to school, you got to get good grades, and you got to, become something or whatnot. And a lot of it was because my mom would push me like tremendously. It's a single mom that raised me. I still don't know till this day, having 3 kids now, I don't know how she really did it. But here I am. It's cool. So like I said, I've worked a lot of retail. I ended up I was actually going to try to be a firefighter, which
I could see that.
Yeah, right. But those things did not work out. There was a few things that I was missing in terms of my application, yada, yada, so on and so forth. Basically, it's a funny story though. So I don't know if a lot of people know about the whole firefighter process, but I filled out a 20-page application with reference letters, 3 reference letters from neighbors. You got to have a whole bunch of papers notarized and signed, and it was an open enrollment. So, it was, if you sign a document in black ink and they ask you to sign it in blue, you're gone. So I got through all of that. I did the written test, written exam, and all that stuff. I sat down to take the physical exam, and that's when we needed to turn in our application. And turns out I was missing a page. So I said, look, I could get it notarized really quick and all that. The lady pulled me to the side. She's like, I feel so bad. I'm so sorry, but it's gone. Like, you're out. It's not happening. So I said, all right, cool. I wasn't mad at the lady. I understood, the business, it is what it is. But I was upset. I was upset at myself for missing that. And it was just one small paper that I needed to sign. Immediately, I went home. I remember that day. I went home, changed, and I went straight to the university, to FNU. That's where I got my physical therapist assistant certification license. And I applied for the program. At the time, I was doing my bachelor's degree at FIU, if memory serves me right. Yes, I was. And, I kind of just, whatever, I applied for it, and whatever happens, happens.
So you went straight from the not being able to take the test for the firefighting academy, no?
That same morning, literally.
So you already knew you wanted to be a PTA, bro.
Well, it was. Those were my 2 options. But I wanted to really do the firefighter because the firefighter, they have an open schedule, whatnot, and I could maybe do finesse and do both. If it were to come down to it.
It was an easier path. I think it's less school, no?
Yes. It was more physical in a sense, because I've heard that those exams for the firefighters are pretty tough. Right. So I was in shape, and I was actually training for it. They give you a whole form to like train. I was even training.
Yeah. So you were ready to go.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't, you had two paths. It's funny. That's the topic of the day. You had to choose a hard path. In your case, you were forced to choose a harder path.
Right. And
Fucked up.
at the moment, right. So I figured that, I'd do my PTA school, get through it, and then, get hired and do my DPT, which is a doctorate in physical therapy. Yeah. As I was at FIU, I was working at Sprint at the time, which, you and I are very familiar with that.
Right.
I get a call. I was on the sales floor. I get a call, and they were like, "Hey, this is I think it was Kelly that called me. She's a director now at that university. She called me, "Hey, I'm interested in you coming in for a little interview. We're looking at your candidacy for this program, and I think we would like to have you on here. We just want to, get to."
So do they really accept people, or is that kind of like a ruse to just get people to come in and make sure they sign up? Is there an actual selection process?
No, I do believe there's a criteria.
Okay.
In order to get accepted into that program. I think your academics obviously need to be at a certain extent because it is a hard program. Yeah. I'm not going to sugarcoat. It is a hard program. You're going to be working with people. It's health oriented, so you need to know what you're doing. You could hurt somebody. I can hurt somebody, off of not knowing certain things. So. No, to an extent, yes. They do look at the criteria. I don't know exactly what the criteria is, but, you have to have some type of, knowledge. And
makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting, bro. So, firefighting academy don't work out. You go, you take the test. How long is school for PTA?
It's supposed to be 2 years.
It took you how long?
It took me about a year and some change because that first year is your prereqs. But me being that I already was halfway done with my bachelor's degree, I already had almost all of my prereqs done. Gotcha. I just had to get I think it was 2 classes that I had to take. Physics, which I love. Everybody hates. I love physics. I don't know for what reason, but it's cool. And introduction to physical therapy. Got it. Got those out the way. And then, the only hard part, like I said, it was the hard road because I had to leave my job because it's a full-time program. So
that's what you pay your bills.
Exactly. So, and I believe it's a little bit, I don't want to call it luck, but I think it was more like, as cliche as it might sound, it was more like destiny because at the time I was living with my then girlfriend. Yes, we were going to get married at the time. She was my fiance. She's my wife now.
Shout out to the wife.
Yeah, shout out. Love you. So we were living in an apartment. And what happened was I had actually had enough money saved up to survive for exactly 1 year. It was just coincidence. Yeah. At the same time, my car, I just finished paying off my car. So I wasn't going to have that monthly bill. So it was meant to be. A lot of things were just aligning towards it that it wasn't with the whole firefighter situation. So I kind of took that and ran with it.
So your girl you lived with your girl, your fiance at the time, you had already proposed. Well, I know you had 2 kids at the time, or just, it was Lennox alive yet? Not yet, right?
No. So she was about to get pregnant with Lennox. I didn't know this at the time yet, but I
was practicing shooting a shot.
But right. It was bound to happen. We were about to get married. So it was a lot of things. It was a lot of pressure for me because as I went into the program, I realized that if you don't keep the criteria that they require going, you get booted from the program. You still have to pay up until you got booted. Because you gotta get the tuition and all that stuff. Right. You got to get all that paid up, and you have to come back the following year.
Real quick, what does it cost to become a PTA?
That changes. Well, when I was going there, it was about 40 something. So like 40, call it 45 grand. 45. Yeah, I think it was like 45 or something like that.
So much more worth to that. A lot of degrees people got.
Yes.
Yeah, you could actually.
Yeah, it's an actual. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
It's kind of like a trade we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
All right. So you say you just by the luck of the draw happened to have enough money saved for a year. I know it was hard because I remember you telling me and people. I think there was a girl that like my sister knew or something, but she was like tripping the hell out too about studying and passing the test.
Yeah.
That went to school with you. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Maria,
don't
if
know.
I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
her.
I believe it was her.
Was there any point in time where you were like, "What the hell did I get myself into? I just need to go get a job again and pay the bills."
100%. So the difference between this program, like it was, so most private universities that offer this program, they obviously have requirements. So throughout the program, so you have to, I believe at the time, these other private institutions would require you to maintain a 75% throughout, for all your courses.
Like your grade?
Yes. This university that I was in required an 80%. So it was just that much.
Standard.
Right. So, and granted, now that I look back at it, it's cake for me because this is things that I just do on a regular. Like this is my life now. Like it's just so easy to me. But back then it was just so hard with the pressure of, because then I found out, well, I got married right before I went into the program, that was another like mission in itself.
Yeah.
And then I found out that my wife was pregnant right after, not too short after, but I was still in the program. So I had the pressure of finishing school, get a higher income, right? Provide for my family. I had a new kid on the way. I couldn't repeat another year.
Right. You couldn't afford to fail.
Because I only had enough money to last me for that year.
Yeah. So if you failed, you basically were fucked and you were not going to be able to pursue
Yeah, I don't know what I was going to do.
And granted,
to be
at
honest
this
with you.
time, this is what, 2018 you said, right? 2017, 18?
It's like 17, 18 around
So
there, yeah.
you were 28, 29 years old?
27, 28, I believe.
Yeah, which is right about that age where fear starts striking. That like, okay, I'm not a kid anymore and I got to figure this shit out.
Correct.
I know I went through
Correct.
it too.
Correct. And I had a lot of growing up to do too,
The hardest time, in my opinion, for me was that age gap where I went from like being, I got time to like, fuck, I ran out of time.
It was a transition, definitely.
For sure.
It was tough.
All right, let's kind of pivot for a second. We'll come back to the career field and the progression, but let's pivot to your personal life. Talked about your upbringing, single mom. Do you have siblings?
I do, but they're all from my father's side.
So it was just you and your mom growing up?
It was just my mom and I. Correct.
Walk us through that. How was your life growing up? Did you guys do well? Did you guys struggle?
So my mom did a superb job in shielding me from a lot of things. And it's not because she told me, but I'd come to realize a lot of things. I put two and two together.
Right.
Single mom. Luckily, we had the help from my grandparents at one point during the earlier years of mine. My uncle was always around as well. My grandfather passed away in 98.
Okay.
He was kind of like the patriarch there. It was, it was very tight-knit because of him. And then my grandmother passed away a year after I graduated high school.
I was around for that.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah. So they were the ones that, kind of kept it all together, which, I mean, they would help my mom out a lot. My grandma would be the one that would take care of me when my mom was working because, she needed to provide, obviously.
Right.
So
grandma's are a blessing, dude.
Yeah, I couldn't begin to tell you, because even now I see it with my kids. I mean, you see it as well with Jake and stuff,
That's crazy.
But yeah.
All right, so you born and raised here in Miami?
Yes.
Okay.
Hialeah Hospital.
Me too. Bro, everybody went to Hialeah Hospital in the late 80s and early 90s for sure. Bro.
It's crazy because that doesn't exist anymore. Like Hialeah Hospital is still there, but they don't do the maternity.
They took it out. They sent them to Kendall Regional now, actually. I know that because Stephanie was supposed to be there. I was like, yeah, we're not giving birth in Hialeah Hospital.
Oh, wow.
No, actually, let me rephrase. We're not giving birth in fucking Kendall Regional. If you're from down south, bro, Kendall Regional is like the fucking morgue.
Yeah, if you go over there,
you're coming out. Yeah, I was like, nah. But, dude, what drove your passion? Because from what I didn't even know you wanted to be a firefighter. I'm finding out today, but you clearly had, was it more like was it a scheduling thing? Because these are very technical, both of them are like technical jobs. And I know you were at Tech and Sprint, but that's not what I mean. What motivated you, or what drew you, attracted you to those career fields?
To the firefighter, so I wanted to do something that would allow me to stay fit.
Okay.
And I kind of like the whole facade of a firefighter, like, the aesthetic, like I'd have to stay fit, like, I'm around, going around in a little truck.
We want to be a stripper.
Right, yeah. And then the whole idea of, I believe they do 24 hours on and then like 48 off or something like that.
Your brother's a firefighter, no? Mm-hmm. Is it?
And my mother-in-law, my father-in-law.
So it's 1 on, 2
Oh, wow.
off, no? 1 on 2 off.
Yeah, so I kind of like that aesthetic, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, I was planning on, maybe having a little side hustle for those 2 days off,
Yeah.
and maybe
You could operate
just
a
double my income.
business or like, yeah.
Exactly.
And then, but you were already thinking of, because a PTA, I mean, you ended up still, we were talking about this, and you ended up picking the perfect career because you get to wear gym clothes all day. But like, I know I have other friends that say the same shit you did, and I walked in a clinic where like I was probably 30 and the next person next to me, the youngest might have been 70. Like, it's not always a sexy career field, and there was no guarantee. Did you know you were going to end up working the way you did when you went into the program?
No. I didn't know what setting I was going to end up in. I knew I liked sports, but I really didn't think I'd end up in a sports clinic,
Right.
more or less. It's kind of like more of like, again, it was just certain things started aligning. So through that program, they selected 24 people, if I'm not mistaken. It was 24 people, and most of them were, English was not their first language. So shout outs to them because they got through that program. I believe they had to do double the work I did because I understood the material. I understood the language. There wasn't a language barrier in my standpoint. But for them, they had to like pretty much translate everything into English, all these new terms and all these.
And all that shit in English?
Exactly.
They are?
Yeah.
They don't have like a...
Yeah, no, there's no...
board exam and shit.
Yeah, there's no Spanish text there. This is all English. The board exam was in English, so... I remember the professors, it was 3 of them, which I love them to death. I truly don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for them. Not because, for any other reason, but they were very strict, but they were fair. They pushed for having English spoken in the class only because, a lot of people saw it as, she's not going to let us talk Spanish, but at the end of the day, she's trying to help you guys out at the end of the day.
Prepping you.
Exactly. Nobody else cares if you don't speak Spanish. If you don't speak English.
That's interesting. Yeah, man, sometimes you need those professors or those people that, make all the freaking difference. And you don't really know it at the time, and then you look back. And,
you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. And now I look back at it, I'm like, damn, fuck.
All right, so you graduated school.
Yes.
What did the process for you to land at the job that you started with look like? Did you get it right away, or?
No. So okay. So part of that program towards the end, it kind of shifts from academic, from book work and like practicals and all that stuff, and they start putting you into like clinics. They split you into a group. You go with a professor, like let's say 5 people go with one professor, 5 people go with the other, and 5 people go with the other. And then you get to test out different settings. Like they'll put me like in an ALF, which is an assisted living facility.
Right.
Usually that demographic there is usually older people.
Right.
And you work there I forgot for the time frame. I think it's just like, you go in and you shadow. Yeah, it's still in the program.
For free.
You shadow. Yeah, you shadow other PTs.
Because you paid to go to school.
Correct. I'm paying for that. Yeah. They do it more as in like a learning curve. So you get to experience every, situation and get to see what you like. Because what if, you graduate and you get put into a neuro, like let me
field. There's like doctors,
right.
They got to do their residency.
Right. My kryptonite is neurology.
Right.
So what if I would have graduated and gone and gotten a job at a neuro clinic, and it's been like I would have been miserable. Like right. Fuck. Like I wish I would have known. Yeah, so you also it was like this.
Like OJT in high school. Remember work experience.
Right. So you get a bit of exposure. Nice. So I did that with older people, and then I did where was it that I went? I went to it was like a retirement home, but it was more for like I forgot what they call it. I forgot the term. I'll round back to that in a little bit. But basically it's very sick people, older, that needed, round the clock care, obviously. So it's acute care.
Okay.
There we go. And that was pretty tough because you do see people with dementia, you see older people.
Their last days. Mm-hmm.
Basically, yeah. You also do see people that are recovering and, do have some type of future where they're not going to, die. And then it was, I remember there was a really big like commotion about it. There was this clinic, there was this sports clinic. It was pretty popular because they see a lot of high-end athletes, and they were under that umbrella where they'll refer. But my professors, I remember them telling me, they were like, look, we don't refer just about anybody here. Like, we need to see that
You gotta earn it.
that you can work in that field, in that, in that situation, that environment. And we got to see that your academics are all right. You need to be knowledgeable, obviously, because the two owners there are pretty tough. Like it's not a little easy clinic to work for. It's, it's tough.
Yeah, doing PT with a
So
75-year-old woman
right.
that just needs her shoulder stretched.
Exactly. So that wasn't my, I never really made a big deal about being my goal. It was kind of like nonchalant for me. Like, all right, like if they send me there, cool. If they don't, cool. Like it is what it is. I'll take whatever they give. Like,
Right.
So they had pulled me into the office. I remember they were like, hey, listen, we were really considering sending you to this place. I don't want to say the name because,
Right.
certain things.
Yeah.
And I said, sure. At first, I'm not going to lie to you, from all the talks I've had with the professors, I was a little intimidated, not going to lie, but I wasn't going to back down from that. If they believed that I can survive in that environment, then I'm going to go ahead and get in that environment and, do what I can.
Okay.
So I end up going over there and I forgot how long it was. I think it was like a month. I think it was like 6 weeks or something like that. And, I got to meet a lot of people, got to work over there for free, basically. And for my exit interview, I remember I sat down with one of the owners of the clinic that I was actually attending. And he said, hey, man, I really like how you work. I really see you with a future in this field. And I believe I can train you to basically get to where I'm at. And I said, all right. Thank you. It's very flattering. And he said, also, I wanted to offer you a position once you graduate from your program to come work for me if you would have us.
Right.
And I said, sure.
Of course, no shit.
In my head, I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to be working with all these athletes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I said, okay, cool. So then, I finished my program. I took the exit exam from the program. And then,
sure enough, you got hired?
Well, I started working hourly there. I still didn't have my license because you have to pass the exam to pass the course of the school, the program. Yeah. And then I got to take my license exam, my board exam with Florida. So I remember it was in October. So whatever, I studied and I worked over there part-time, got my hours in and whatnot. And I took the exam. And I remember it was one night I was leaving my mom's house. I had left the gym, passed by my mom's house, and I was going home because my apartment was on the way between the gym and my mom's house. And the WhatsApp with the group of people that had gotten through the program started bumping, started blowing up. Oh, the test results are in, And I was like, damn, should I just wait till I get home to open this shit? Because what if it says failed? And I'm like,
and you
fuck.
still have your kid is either born or about to be born at this point, right?
Correct. So I'm like, fuck. So whatever, I kind of pulled off to the side. I couldn't even wait. I opened it and once I saw it passed, I was like, yo, I just felt like a whole
relief.
Weight just lift up. I even cried, true shit. I just, I was like, bro, I can't
driving.
No. Well, I was still getting out of my mom's complex. So I kind of just pulled to the side near the exit. I don't know if you remember it from being over there.
In front of FIU, no?
Yeah. So I kind of pulled over to the side and I saw it and I'm like, damn, fuck. I looked at it for a little bit and then I just cried, because it's bro, I went through a lot. It was a lot of pressure.
If you only knew that was only the beginning.
Bro, so to know that I just, for real. To know that I just grinded and it built a lot of mental toughness and it revealed a lot of stuff about me that I didn't even know. You know what I'm saying? Hard work always does. Man, I wish I would have known it.
I respect it, bro, because, we went to school together, and school sucks.
Bro, I hated it so
bad. No way on planet Earth, as mentally tough as I consider myself to be, that I think I will ever be able to finish. I hate science to begin with, but even, shit that interests me, school's hard.
Yeah, and I was never really a straight A. I would only get C's.
Yeah.
Had I known that all I had to do was pick up a book for maybe an hour a day and study a couple things, I would have been damn, that's it? Exactly.
You'd be an honor roll for sure. All right, so you graduate, you pass, you get your license, you're already working there, so now they bump you to whatever salary is.
Right, they officially hire me under salary.
How long do you do that for?
What, work for them?
Yeah.
4 years and some change around there. If we're counting, the time that I spent, in limbo,
Right.
from the time I got my
You
license.
were involved with them in 4 years.
So it was like
4
about
years.
4.5 years
And
around there.
I don't know how this works, but I think I might have the answer. But for the 4 years, you basically did the same thing, right?
Yes.
Like there's not like it's obviously it's medicine. It's not like for us that we're in the sales or like you
Right.
climb
Yeah.
your
No,
way
it was the same
up.
thing. Right. It was the same
You
thing.
did the
And it
same
was
job for 4 years, and did the pay vary, or did you get paid the same shit all 4 years?
Yeah.
Like,
No. So I got
raises and stuff.
my raises here and there. I fought for my raises. It was always like the cat and mouse game with like I want more, I want a little more, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll see what we get for you or whatever.
Right.
The usual, which I was getting tired of, honestly.
Clearly.
So I got paid well for being a PTA. I got paid well for doing that, but I was getting underpaid for what I was bringing to the company.
Right.
Because I was a PTA, but I was also running the clinic at some point. I was the guy that was constantly there. It was a huge revolving door in that company, and I was the only constant.
Right.
So I think every year it was like a new employee. So every time, we worked with a lot of NFL guys, and so during the season they're with their respective teams. And then during the off season, they come, some go train Dallas, whatever. Right, the ones that would come over here, they'd train down here in Florida. They'd rehab over here. So that would be the busy season. So the NFL off season is our busy season.
Got it.
So every off season, they'd come in and like they'd see a whole new staff, but Jesse was the only one that was there.
Well, and it also speaks to how good you did, because if they have high turnover, one, they might not be easy to deal with, but two, I remember, obviously, your professors told you how tough they were, and it's either they're not easy or they have a really high standard that you got to live up to.
100%, 100%. And I learned a lot there. So, I'm always very grateful for anywhere that I've been that I've actually learned something. So,
actually, you did it 4 years. At what point did you know you wanted to work for yourself? Like, there has to have been like a day, a conversation, a moment that just hit off a switch, like, yo, fuck this, or did it gradually?
Okay. So, all right. Here we go. Here's the story.
Yeah,
so, okay. So part of that company is a small business, but they would do a yearly, I wouldn't want to say action plan, but more like a reflection where you write down like things that you've done, accomplishments, etc., what you want to do for the year upcoming, goals, etc. And I remember I sat down, and then you'd fill that out, you'd send it in, and then they'd call you in for an interview. And, they'd kind of go over it, and they set the expectations for the upcoming year, and they discuss, would they discuss salary increases? No, not at that meeting. No. So that would just be like a reflection, basically. And I remember I was sitting down there. I had already like kind of gotten tired of I was already kind of getting fed up. Like working for somebody is just different now. So I believe one of the owners she tells me, she's like, hey, Jess, I believe it's something in the lines of everybody that we try to hire is so good that we need to strike immediately, because if we don't hire them immediately, they end up getting hired by somebody else, or they end up opening their own business because that's the profile that we look for. And you survived in this environment for 4 years. So I kind of put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, wait a minute. You guys look for a mold where you like look for people that that usually end up getting hired by somewhere else if you don't strike immediately because they're so good. I survived in this company for 4 years.
You could have better, basically.
So I'm like, wait a minute.
Why would she tell you that? I'm just wondering.
I don't know.
Fucking stupid.
I don't know, but she was very fond of me. At least that I know of. She loved me to death.
Yeah.
I do appreciate her a lot too.
Yeah, maybe she did it out of just kindness, and
I don't know, but it definitely wasn't to get me out of the company for sure. It was not.
Right.
Because she was she was the wife of the owner. But
Got it.
But yeah, so that kind of stuck with me. And then I had a couple of friends actually that are now they're not really my business partners, but we're kind of like in the same
ecosystem network.
Right. You're right. They kept telling me, like, Jess, bro, like, just leave already, bro. Just leave.
And
just
had they
leave.
worked there and they bounced, or how do you know?
So yes, one of them had worked directly under that same company. The other one was involved with another company that we were involved with inside the same facility, which is a strength and conditioning company. They would do the strength and conditioning. We would do the PT side of things. So it was kind of like, back and forth.
All right. So I know where this is going already. So you, at some point, decided, fuck it, I'm quitting.
So they kept telling me, hey, come on, just do it. And then I noticed that, I kind of did some reflection, and I sat back and I said, I'm like, man, like every off season, every year my coworkers change. Like I have a different set of coworkers. That's a different round of personalities that I got to deal with. I love them all. They all had their good traits. They were all great clinicians. Honestly, I couldn't really tell you how grateful I am for them, because I would learn from them as well, as they would learn from me. But it was just a revolving door that just kept going. It was like, bro, like I don't have any like relationships, long-term relationships with like coworkers, because they leave immediately, like, And then on top of that, like just the facade of the whole company itself was kind of on the downward. Like they had their peak years, and then I kind of started seeing a trend that it was down. Like clients weren't really happy, employees weren't happy.
Well, your foundation is cracked if people are leaving, and I'm not one to judge. I don't know what they do wrong, but that's
right.
Coincides with what you're telling me.
Right, and like, I felt like I was being overworked, underpaid, and then the last thing that kind of broke was just the energy there. Like I would go, like I wasn't in a bad mood, but it was just like the energy was just off. Like it's the weirdest thing. Like, it was just like I was usually happy in that environment, because, the clients, the guys, that we were having fun. We would always play music and like, vibe to stuff. Sometimes we'll sit down in the mornings, like David and Mario, which were like the two of the clinicians that would treat there with me. We would sit down and be like, all right, guys, what's the playlist for today?
Right.
So we would get creative. We would do like, all right, Kanye's top 3 songs off of every album. Boom. Let's play that.
Nice.
So we all had like a relationship. Right. But all of that just started kind of like dying out. Mario left, David left, got sent to another clinic. And it's kind of like, and then the vibe just changed.
Gotcha.
So that's when I knew. I was like, man, I gotta do something. What am I gonna do here? Like, I keep asking for raises. It's not enough. They give me just enough, but it's not enough.
Right.
Just give me enough to stay.
It's a hamster wheel.
Right. So that's when I was like, all right, now I got to get the wheels turning. So I kind of started doing like part-time after I would get out of there on my short days. I had 2 long days and then 3 short days. So Monday, Wednesday, Fridays were my short days. Tuesday and Thursdays were my longer days, where I would be there till 6, 7. And then we fought to get it down to like 6:30, because it was just, we were there almost all day.
Yeah.
So on those days I would leave at 3, I started working with a home health agency, just driving to old people's houses and just doing like a little bit of exercise with them and stuff.
So what a difference, right?
Right.
If you're training top
tier, right. It was just like,
1% athletes
and it was cool. I mean, it was all right. It was still work. Yeah. Like it was a 30-minute session that I had to do, but I still had to like constantly it was just too much. I was being strung in all different directions and stuff. So I did that for a little bit, and then some things happened with. So originally I had said there was a strength and conditioning company there. The owner's right-hand man at that company had left. And then he had started his own little gym, but it was kind of like on the low type of thing, because I believe they were dealing with a non-compete or something like that. I don't know. But he happened to get kicked out of the gym that he was at. And then he ends up calling me and he's like, hey, Jess, I'm getting kicked out of this gym, so I'm going to be moving to another location. Like, why don't we talk? And I said, all right, let's talk, So I showed up. I remember I was helping him move machines out of that old gym, and like, it was on a Sunday, it was pouring. We were moving gym machines into a U-Haul and moving it. We had to end up moving it to his house at a pod storage. It was a mission, because he couldn't get the contract for the place, whatever. It was a whole mission. So we were talking, he's like, bro, why don't you set up here at the gym? And I said, shit, I mean, that can work. And at the
Right.
time, he's a strength and conditioning coach that would see professional athletes. So I was like, wait a minute, like if I work out of that gym, I can see them. And then the guys that I usually like see can come see him. So we could kind of like
feed each other. Yeah.
exactly. So that's kind of like where it started. And I go, all right, cool. So we discussed, you know, all the details about it later on. You know, obviously I would have to like sign like a sublease and stuff, you know, to like rent out a little small area.
I mean, and I know this, but to make sure everybody understands, you basically agreed. He thought of you for a reason because you for sure were good.
Yes.
If I'm him, I wouldn't go to a scrub that's gonna,
Right.
you know, fuck these people.
Right.
Up.
He's trusting me with his athletes.
But you agreed to sublease a space within his gym where you could see any client basically that you bring in.
He gave me
it was a pipeline for you of clients because he already had a, you know.
He had a good little foundation.
Yeah, so you could just kind of start eating. All right, and that's when true sports performance was born.
Yes.
Nice.
That's where it was born.
There's like a couple years where you said a year and a half, give or take, no?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the fun part now. When you went to school, you're about to get married. You got married right when you started school, no?
Yes. Right before starting that program.
Your wife got pregnant.
Yes.
I know you have another baby. So at what point did your wife get pregnant again? And if it coincides with you quitting your job, you just fucking have a really good knack for bad timing.
You know, now that you say it like that, yeah. So I left about a year and some change ago, and my daughter, Kalani, is now about a year and a half. So she was born in January,
And
10th.
You quit when?
And I left. Oh yeah, I'm the 7th. That's
I
crazy.
thought you said 10th.
Yeah.
On the 10th.
Yeah, I thought you said 10th.
Yeah, the 10th.
Yeah, 10th. The daughter's the 10th, and then his is on the 7th.
Oh, yours
Oh,
is
that's
the
crazy.
7th. Oh, shit.
Mine is on the 7th.
Oh,
Kalani is January 10th, 3 days
Oh,
after.
shit, okay, cool.
So yeah, and I quit, and I completely quit March 30th, where I just never went.
You went home and conceived the baby the same day?
Basically.
That's how you do the math.
No, wait. She was born, and then I left.
Oh, so she had, so she was already, the following March.
So I just
you
had
had
a
a
child,
newborn. You had a
right?
newborn.
So I had a newborn. So yeah, exactly. So talk about pressure, right? I think I put myself in these situations just because I look around and be like, I have no other out. Like I gotta go.
But like, if there's a way to remarry her, because I would love to ask her, get her in that chair and ask her what she was thinking every time you did this crazy shit.
Man, honestly, she
She
was.
wants to kill me.
Man, she was actually part of the whole process. She was the one pushing me. She's like, bro, I know you're miserable at that job. Just fucking do
your
it.
wife-
Just
your wife's a fucking
just fucking
gangster.
quit. Just quit. Whatever. We'll figure shit out.
Yeah, she's a
And
gangster.
I'm like, bro, you crazy as fuck right now. Like, you know. But
2-month-old. Fuck. And
But-
3-4-year-old? Because he's 3-4 years older, Lennox?
3-4 years old, and then
Two
you
kids
know,
under 3.
and then I have a 14-year-old
Yes.
off of another relationship. You know, so she's, you know, I still have to obviously provide for her and be around, and you know, so it's definitely tough. But I mean, here I am, bro. I'm just grinding away.
Bro, honestly, you want to get to the next level? Have another kid.
No,
Clearly, there's a
I'm done. I'm
trend
done.
here.
Nah, man, it's
All right,
it's
bro.
too
So
much.
you quit. You have a 2-month-old, a 3-4-year-old, a 14-year-old. You're a homeowner recently, in the sense, in the last
yes.
couple of years.
Oh, that's
You
another
bought a
one.
house.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's another one. We purchased a home during COVID, literally.
yeah, I remember that. And you had a new car, like car payments. No.
Yeah, I had car payments. So as soon as, damn, my wife might kill me, but if I tell this story. But anyway, so remember I told you I had paid off my car, right? It was paid off. I didn't have to pay a car note. So as soon as I graduated, I got this job and I was getting paid, you know, more money than I've ever gotten paid before. You know, nothing crazy, but I was like, whatever. I went one day to like check out some car. It was a Lexus GS,
You left with it.
white exterior, red interior. You know, I've been wanting that car for years before that. And the guy threw me a good number. And I kind of said, fuck it.
And honestly, the crazy thing is like the way car dealerships work. Like, just don't go, because if you go to the car dealership,
It's because you want to buy it.
you're leaving with the car, bro.
So I drove out of there in a new car. And I got home and she's like, oh, you know, I went to go see a car today. Oh, yeah. Oh, cool. I bought it. Man,
She fucking went fucking ballistic.
man, she went crazy. And at the time, that same day, we had to turn in her lease. So we had to get another car.
But baby,
It was just,
can afford it.
it was a bad decision. But I mean,
Women are always more mature than men. We all know that.
that is 100% correct. thank you, honey, for not murdering me or divorcing me. I'm pretty sure she was very close to it, but you know, I love her to death, man. Like, you know, she's a blessing for real.
Good thing about your business, I think, is it's not just athletes. So what is your ideal client outside of athletes? Like, because, I mean, I'm your client and you have other people like me that you see, but for everybody watching, I know you don't have to be an athlete to start seeing yourself. So tell me what your ideal client is, like what type of people that you normally see, and the benefits of seeing a PT regularly, if you want to kind of just share that one.
So in that gym, you know, they do have, they do see a lot of youth, mainly baseball kids, youth baseball kids, that I sometimes do work on as well, here and there sporadically. There's also just average Joes that that are in the gym.
No pun intended, right?
No pun intended. No pun intended. No pun intended. But yeah, basically, I just work with anybody. I have a client that has cerebral palsy. He's a younger kid. I'm working on him on getting him to walk better.
Amazing.
You know, but anybody can get the work. Anybody and everybody needs some type of work, and it could definitely benefit them in the sense of, you know, there's a misconception with physical therapy that you have to be injured in order to go and see a physical therapist. Not really. You know, right now it's actually on a higher trend. If you see athletes like LeBron James, like he spends like I think it was close to like $1 million in on his body and stuff. Mm-hmm. So this is all preventative care. Yeah. Granted, it doesn't mean that you go to physical therapy and you're now unstoppable. You're not going to get injured. Right. I mean, you know, it's just
things happen, right?
These are things that we can do in order to like decrease the possibilities of you getting injured.
For sure.
But it's actually on the rise. You know, all these recovery things like infrared saunas and like, you know, cold plunge. I think a lot of people are doing all these type of things to like, exactly. So I really think that, you know, people can benefit off of, you know, just frequently going and seeing, you know, even if it's like once a month or twice a month, seeing someone that can stretch them out, make sure that the body is functioning correctly in terms of like, you know, muscular imbalances and or whatnot, and get that worked on so you can go ahead and avoid getting injured and just stay doing the activities that you enjoy doing that keep you healthy.
Sure.
And that's what, you know, pretty much that's what it's all about.
Well, I'm extremely happy to see you do well, dude. You have no idea.
Thank you.
We'll continue to try our best to help you and send more clients.
Thank you.
I
appreciate that.
To ask you one last question that I ask everyone just to wrap up.
Sure.
If you had to give, you know, 2017 Jesse one advice, what would that advice be? And I say 2017 because that's when you like were like fire department, and I might have the year wrong, but that when you were choosing what you wanted to do, you had to get, now that you know what you know, if you could go back, what would that one advice be that you'd give them?
The hustle is always going to match the outcome. If you put in 20% effort, you're going to get 20% result. If you put in 100, you're going to get that 100.
Damn, that's pretty fire, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. Boy's a philosopher.
That's what it is. You gotta hustle. It's always going to match it.
Yeah, it's basic math sometimes, and it's so simple yet so hard, right?
It's a grind.
Yeah, you're fucking kissing it, dude.
Thank you. Appreciate you, bro.
Thanks for coming on, dude.
Nah, man. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah. I got you. Impromptu.